Hi everyone, welcome to Video Boys Reviews. I'm Kenneth.
And I'm David.
And today we just watched Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Alright, so Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock has Captain Kirk still mourning the death of Spock. So they're heading home in the Enterprise, and at the same time his son David Marcus and Lieutenant Savick from the previous film, they're both examining the Genesis planet. They get back and they find out that the Enterprise is going to be decommissioned. But once the plot gets going, we find out that Dr. McCoy is going through these weird emotional problems. Spock's dad shows up and tells Kirk that he shouldn't have left Spock on the planet Genesis, and the Klingons are going after the planet Genesis in order to take its power.
We finally get to see the Klingon.
So, David, what did you think of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock?
It was cool. It wasn't as good as Wrath of Khan, but I mean, they set the bar pretty high with that movie, so it's understandable. But, I mean, from the Star Trek movies I've seen, it was good. I think I liked it better than In the Darkness.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and you love that movie, and now all of a sudden everything's rising up above it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize how good these old movies are great.
Yeah. Well, very good. Let's see. Well, for me personally, I also like this movie. In our last review, I actually edited this out, but Matt said he hated this movie because he doesn't like the concept of bringing a character back, and basically the crux of this film is about bringing Spock back. I can kind of understand it. It's a kind of sloppy storytelling, but David, what's something you liked in this movie?
We finally got to see the Klingons, and it had most of the original characters in it, except for, well, Spock was in it at the end, I guess.
Yeah, that counts. I mean, the actor who plays Spock, he actually directed this movie, so.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Any specific scenes or anything that you thought were pretty good? Well, we'll get to the.
There were some pretty funny scenes,
but anything you particularly liked?
Overall, it was just a good movie.
Okay.
I liked that it was had a little bit of action in it this time.
Yeah.
It was cheesy action, but it was cool.
Well, one thing.
Oh, and I like that. They actually were on a planet for a bit of time. They weren't just in space the whole time.
That's true. Yeah, a big chunk of the movie is spent on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the things I liked in this movie, I like the directing of the movie. So there are a lot of these moments where you hear the music swell, and then there's this big reveal of something like. I think that's to Leonard Nimoy's credit, that it's very well directed, everything's visually nice. Another thing let's see, that's the thing with this movie. This is a weird transition movie, so it's really hard to talk about. As I mentioned to you, it's the movie that's made just to get us from part 2 to part 4.
Yeah, I guess that is what it is.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. But see, that's pretty much what this whole movie's about. The whole thing's about bringing Spock back.
So they could keep doing movies?
So they could keep doing movies. But thankfully, it's not just that. If the whole movie was, all right, we're going to bring Spock back, that's what this whole movie's for, it would have been really crappy. But they do other things that kind of lead into the next movie. Here, let's talk about the silly things that you noticed in the movie before we get too deep into the plot here.
Well, fight scene.
Oh.
If you want to get into the fight scene.
Sure, that's at the very end. The main villains in this movie are the Klingons. Yeah. There's a main Klingon bad guy who's played by Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and him and Kirk have this fist fight at the end of the movie.
What did you mention? It would look like it was two old men fighting or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where they didn't overly choreograph it, and it just seems like two old men fighting. I don't know.
Yeah, they weren't really throwing many punches or anything. Yeah. It was just kind of like,
Yeah, it was a silly fight, and I don't know. That's the thing about Star Trek. When you watch it, you're not going to get like a lightsaber battle or anything like that.
It wasn't like a big elaborate fight.
Well, see, that's to the detriment of this film, because I don't know if you remember in Wrath of Khan, Kirk and Khan, they never share the same stage together. Like they're always talking to each other through the screen, and that was kind of part of the inventive and kind of charming things about Wrath of Khan, was that it didn't have to have like a fist fight between Kirk and Khan.
It was like a mental fight.
It was a mental fight, and them using strategies against each other. But at this one, it's like, Kirk, I'm gonna fight you. Okay, let's fight.
Yeah, it was like a physical, actual fight.
And it's just, it was pretty pathetic fight scene. But any other cheesy things that you thought about?
Something wasn't cheesy, but it was just kind of odd. When Captain Kirk's son dies.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when he landed on the planet, where his son died, like... Yeah. I feel like he wasn't too fazed by it. He was more concerned about Spock than his own son.
Yeah.
And I mean, he didn't bring his son's body back, but he brought like Spock's body back.
Yeah, that's true. He just left it there on the exploding
He was
planet.
just like, "Oh, where's my son? Oh, he's dead. Yeah. All right, where's Spock?" Like,
yeah, that's the thing. It comes in the middle of all this tragic stuff that it just kind of gets glossed over. And there's this great strategy Kirk does, and I know you kind of appreciated it. Was basically, the Enterprise gets stranded, and it's the Klingons, and they're going to send over their people to take everyone hostage and get the Genesis material, and then Kirk does something very cool to get rid of them.
Oh, like outsmarts them.
Yeah, he outsmarts them with the self-destruct.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Destruct sequence completed and engaged. Awaiting final code for 1 minute countdown.
Code 0, 0, 0. Destruct. 0.
Destruct sequence is activated.
And so basically what happens is a really dramatic scene, something, it's the Enterprise, the USS Enterprise. It lasted through 3 seasons of a television show. That's like 80 episodes. And it lasted through 3 movies, and it explodes here.
Yeah.
And when it explodes, it actually looks really cool.
My God, Bones. What have I done?
He kind of looked like he had the same reaction like when his son died, almost. Like, oh, all right.
Well, you were pointing out that line that he says to Bones when they're on the planet, right, when they see the ship falling.
Oh, yeah, like, what have I done?
What have I done?
He just says it kind of like, what have I done? Like, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's part of Kirk's arc in the movie. It's just like the whole thing is about saving Spock. It was such a blow to him in the last movie. It's like, I have to save Spock, and then I'll mourn the loss of my ship and the loss of my son later on. I mean, the loss of the ship is a big thing too, because if you remember from Wrath of Khan, the whole movie, he wants to get his ship back. He wants to be captain again, and he doesn't want to just sit behind a desk the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And now in this one, they even have a little bit of foreshadowing, like the captain from the other ship, he tells him, Kirk, if you steal the Enterprise, you'll never sit in the captain's chair again. That's what he wants. It's this whole character thing. And then he has to destroy the very thing he wants.
Yes. Like he's probably got in really big trouble for that. I was telling him like, dang.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you were mentioning to me. He's like, aren't they gonna get in trouble for doing?
Yeah, but he's like dreading going back to his base.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what else?
Oh. Okay.
The bar scene, man. It was just kind of Star Warsy.
It was, yeah. All the random aliens showing up, and then
when that guy walked up to Kirk, I just like half expected him to be like, "I don't like you."
You mean McCoy? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, McCoy.
Yeah.
My friend doesn't like you.
He doesn't like it. I do like McCoy's line is like, how can you be deaf with ears like that?
In Star Wars, during that bar scene, weren't they there also to like find a ship?
Yeah.
So like you always got to go to like bars
to find ships. Even the point of the scene is exactly the same as Star Wars. Yeah. One issue I had with the movie was kind of the pacing of it. You know,
when you thought it was too slow or something.
I did think it was too slow, and I'll go into a little more detail on it. When you watch Wrath of Khan, you watch every single scene. Every single scene serves a purpose in the movie.
Yeah.
But with Search for Spock, they're not even till halfway through the movie until they start to steal the Enterprise to go save Spock.
Yeah.
And everything up to there was kind of just reiterating the ending of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
You know the line, "I have been and always shall be your friend."
Yeah.
That is said 3 times in the movie.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, you have the little flashback to the end of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
And then
the dad says it.
The dad says it when he does the mind meld with Kirk.
Yeah.
And then at the end, Spock says it again because he's remembering. And all right, we get it. We know what happened. We know what happened in the last movie. Just get on with it.
Maybe the director really liked that line. He's like, I said it first.
I said it. I get to say it again. But that was kind of the thing, because going into this movie, just by the title alone, you know what it's going to be about. You know it's going to be about bringing Spock back.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing with the science team on Genesis. It's like, oh, we found a life form there. Oh, I wonder what it's going to be.
I wonder who it is.
I wonder who it is. And they just drag that out for a really long time. You know, it took a while.
Yeah, I could see that some parts were kind of dragged out. And like, all right, get to the point a little bit. Like, we know who it's going to be. Like,
right. And, here's another silly thing that we pointed out.
There's a lot of silly things.
There are a lot of silly
things. That's part of the charm.
That is part of the charm of the movie. Yeah. And this is kind of a movie thing. But Kirk, in order to find out who Spock put his katra into, his spirit or whatever.
Is that what they call it?
That's what they call it. In order to find it out, Kirk has to put in his copy of Star Trek II: The Wrath.
Oh yeah.
Well, obviously
they have cameras on the ship. Like, how they get there?
Yeah, exactly. It is a silly thing, and you'll see it again in the next movie when we see Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. But
yeah, that was a bit cheesy.
That was cheesy. Once again, part of the charm, and that's a movie thing. You can kind of accept that, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's just worth mentioning.
Yeah, but that's another one, though. It's like, let's rewatch the second movie again. One of the bad things about Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, if you didn't see Wrath of Khan, be completely lost. Yeah. And even then, if you're just an average fan who isn't interested in Star Trek, an average movie fan, you go into this movie, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, you can watch Wrath of Khan even if you're not a Star Trek fan. This one you can't. Yeah,
if I saw this movie before Wrath of Khan, I'd still like it, but I wouldn't like. I appreciate this movie more from seeing, Wrath of Khan first.
Yeah. And I would say my personal favorite scene in the movie, or favorite segments of scene, was when they're getting ready to steal the Enterprise.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
You get to see Sulu beat up a guard and say, "Don't call me Tiny."
I like how he just does it all calmly. He's just like, all right, I'm breaking like a ton of laws. I'm gonna lose my job.
Yeah.
Probably die. All right.
Yeah, you get to see a lot from all the characters, and you see Uhura tell off this young, brash kid who's like, "Well, your career's winding down." And so you get a lot of character moments. So I would say that's one thing that this has over Wrath of Khan, kind of, is that it gives all the secondary characters more things to do.
Yeah. And they did great. Like, it was
oh
cool.
yeah, it was fun seeing them, interact, and you get a lot more of that in the next movie, which you'll see. But yeah, a lot of neat moments. But the thing is, so you had that scene, they're stealing the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And then it cuts right back to the stuff happening on Genesis with David Marcus and Savick looking for Spock.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is still happening. I forgot. It's like, oh, they're still searching for Spock.
Yeah, it was more entertaining watching them just like take over the ship.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
And the thing that keeps this from just being, oh, it's the movie where they bring Spock back. They do the two major things. Kills off Kirk's son and it destroys the Enterprise, which kind of allows the series to open up a little bit to newer plot lines. Because the next movie, they don't have a ship. They have to use the old Klingon ship that they have at the end. Also, yeah, it's true. Kirk didn't mourn his son's death in this movie, but that plays into Star Trek VI. So way ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually plays in really well with Star Trek VI because that whole movie is about the Federation and the Klingons trying to make peace with each other, and Kirk is kind of the person who has to be the intermediary for that, and he can't get past the fact a Klingon killed my son. How am I going to trust these guys? So that's a major thing, and we'll go into that when we see that movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize the Klingons were so mean. I thought they would be like, I don't know, nicer. I don't really know much about the Klingons. I didn't realize they were like evil.
Yeah, well, that's another knock against this film, and I have a lot of knocks against this film. Even
it's
though
okay, it can take it. It's a good film.
It can take it. The bad guy, Commander Krug, is the guy from Back to the Future. You don't really get to know much about him, and you don't really get to. That was the thing about Khan, is you can kind of see things from his point of view, like why he's mad at Kirk. It's like, because of you, my whole crew and my wife is dead.
Yeah.
Looking at Krug, it's like, give me Genesis. Give me Genesis.
Yeah, I know. Like like during that fight, he was just yelling that, like, "Give me Genesis." It just looked like two little kids, like, "Give it to me!" Like,
and that's one thing. It's like in the movie, how's Kirk gonna give you Genesis with what?
Yeah,
you're strangling him right now, and he doesn't have a thing to give it to you.
Yeah,
so,
like what is it? Like I don't know. Like it's a torpedo that's already been deployed. Like
what's he gonna do? So that aspect of the plot doesn't make sense.
Yeah, now that you mention.
Another thing in the plot, which I feel bad because I like this movie, and I don't know, maybe it's like a guilty pleasure thing. It's like I like this movie in spite of the fact that none of it makes sense.
Yeah, like it's still good.
But another thing, how does Spock's resurrection work? So Sarek goes to, Sarek, Spock's dad.
Yeah.
He goes to Kirk. And he tells him, you need to bring Spock's Katra and his body back to Vulcan.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so they're going to somehow refuse his mind. But then we find out Spock's body needed to be living in order to do that, and they had no way of knowing that his body would be alive. He would, as far as they know, it's still like a radioactive corpse.
Yeah, I don't even think Spock knew. Like,
yeah, exactly. And then at the end, that priestess, she says, "Oh, we don't normally do this."
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, it's just like a legend."
Yeah, and so my question is, what was Sarek asking Kirk to do, really? It's like, why is he asking him to bring his son and the Katra, or McCoy, back to Vulcan if his original intention wasn't reviving Spock? They didn't really go into that. It wasn't about reviving Spock. He said, oh, it's just so his future lives on. But he didn't know that the Genesis was going to bring back the body.
Huh.
So what was he planning to do here?
Yeah,
I know it's really elaborate, and it sounds
seems not logical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds ridiculously silly, right? And I mean, as it is, you're bringing back a dead character is pretty silly.
Yeah.
But now you have all this complexity that's just, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Also, like, there's probably an explanation for this, but I'm just confused, like, how Spock was aging so fast, but, like, no one else was aging so fast.
Yeah.
Like, why?
There's a lot of sci-fi things in this movie that don't make sense.
Yeah, you just kind of have to, like, look over it, I guess.
Yeah, basically. I mean, part of the thing about this movie is what what Kirk and McCoy go through. And it's about Kirk once again not being able to achieve his dream about being captain again because he has to save his friend. He cares more about his friend than he cares about his dream.
Your life and your career stand for rationality, not for intellectual chaos. Keep up this emotional behavior and you'll lose everything. You'll destroy yourself. Do you understand me, Jim?
So he's giving up his dreams to save his friend. And then likewise with McCoy, there was that scene between McCoy and Spock who's sleeping at that point, and he's just said, he says, you know, I never thought I'd find myself saying this, but I missed you. You know, it's because like the whole show and even the last movie.
That's like almost the most I've heard him say the whole movie.
Well, he's always the cantankerous doctor. It's like, how can you be deaf with ears like that and stuff like that? But in the last movie, he argued with Spock a lot, and then throughout the whole TV show, he did nothing but argue with Spock. It seems like they kind of hated each other, even though they respected each other.
He loves to hate him.
He loves to hate him, basically. Yeah. But at that point, it seemed like he grew. It's like, I actually missed you, Spock. So it's a nice little character bits in there, you know.
Man, how easy was his like acting job? Like all he had to do was just sit there and look like dumbfounded the whole time. There's this part where they were like escaping with that ship.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there like,
what's going on?
Yeah.
There was that line from Kirk. He said, well, that's what you get for missing staff meetings, Doctor. But yeah, he's a fun character. I always enjoy seeing him grow a little bit. He's always, because the show, basically, it's Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. They're like the triangle or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's always fun seeing them play back and forth. So Spock is like the logical side of Kirk, and McCoy's the very human side of Kirk. So they,
like humorous side.
Yeah, humorous side. And they both give him advice, and then he makes the right decision. So, so good character stuff in the movie, I think.
What did you think of Spock's little kid character? Like how he was acting the whole movie.
Oh yeah, you were pointing
okay with that?
Oh, him screaming and everything. It wasn't annoying watching it, but I can imagine like for the actors or something. Let's start rolling. Kids start screaming.
Yeah.
Well, David, let me ask you: Savick helping Spock through his pon farr, you know, the whole touching the fingers thing.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It was kind of weird. I don't know what that was.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And I was like, what is she gonna do with this guy? Like, what are they?
Is that Vulcan sex?
Something. I don't know what that is.
Overall, a lot of silly things in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's if you're a fan of Star Trek, if you're a fan of Wrath of Khan, you may want to check this movie out. It continues the story, and it also opens the story up to other movies where there's more things to explore.
Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, this movie is meant to bridge the gap between Part 2 and Part 4, and it
did that.
It did that, yeah. I want to say it did a little bit more than that, but it doesn't do enough to stand alone. You know, 2, 3, and 4 are like a trilogy, and in typical trilogy fashion, the second one is kind of the darkest one. So Kirk has all these horrible things happen, but
yeah, I really felt sorry for him at the end. Like, oh, man, son died, his ship blew up.
Yeah, and he might have a friend who doesn't remember him, but
yeah,
we get that glimmer of hope at the end. Your name is Jim.
Yeah.
So a lot of good character moments. If you liked the character arc from Wrath of Khan, it continues through here, and it continues on to Star Trek 4. There are a lot of silly things, as mentioned. There are a lot of things that don't make sense, but...
Yeah. That's with a lot of sci-fi movies.
It's true. Yeah, but part of the movie is kind of the adventurous style about it, and I like the directing. A lot of great visuals and everything. Like, even though the fight was kind of lame, Krug fighting Kirk, it's... The two of them are confronting each other, and it's amidst this planet exploding. It's you know, neat imagery, and then
there's some cool practical effects, you know, for that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know, it was a good movie. Yeah, it wasn't up to Wrath of Khan status, but it was good.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I'll agree with you. It's a good movie. So that's our review of Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Let us know what your thoughts are below. If you disagree with us, if you want to call us idiots.
Or if you want to compliment us, that's cool too.
Yeah, that's cool too. Yes, then by all means comment below. I hope you enjoyed this review, and thank you for watching.
Warp speed.
Ice.
Warp speed.